Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have three poor man's meals or Great Depression meals, however you want to say it. These are actually really good. Y'all know that I love to do anything frugal, anything cheap. I really try to watch what I'm spending and try to just give out tips and ideas on how to save money in your budget for groceries and just different stuff like that. So that's why I'm doing this one. This one's going to save you money on your grocery bill. These three different meals are very inexpensive to make. They're really simple ingredients and they're actually really good. I would not advertise anything on my channel that I personally did not think was good or great. So I know that you guys are gonna like them, and let's get started on our first one, which is poor man's lasagna. For this poor man's lasagna, we're going to need some pasta sauce. I'm going to need some mozzarella cheese, about 2 cups worth. And then I'm going to need about 10 to 12 ounces of rotini noodles, or you can use whatever type of noodles you prefer. And then I have some Italian sausage that I'm going to be using instead of ground beef, just because it's a little bit cheaper. So to start us off, I'm going to be boiling up my noodles. I have about 12 ounces of noodles, and I'm just going to let them get to al dente. And then while that's cooking, I'm also going to cook up my sausage, and this tends to be about $2 cheaper, or kind of almost half the price as what ground beef is. So a lot of times I like to change up and use like breakfast sausage or Italian sausage just because it is a lot more cheaper, and we tend to think that it has a lot more flavor in it. So my husband's really enjoying me changing things up when it comes to our ground beef and sausage. And so once all that sausage is all cooked through, I'm going to go ahead and put it in a 9x13 pan. This type of sausage, I don't actually have to pour out any grease because it's from a local butcher and it doesn't produce a whole lot of grease as what other something that you would get at like the store would. And then I want to put my noodles and my pasta sauce right on top of that. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I'm going to give that a really good stir, make sure everything is incorporated properly. You could definitely add in whatever type of seasonings that you prefer. I just kind of put in a ton of Italian seasoning and kind of called it good. But you can definitely add in whatever type you want. And for just super simple ingredients, you definitely want to add in a lot of seasonings to give it more flavor. And then I'm going to put in about 1.5 to 2 cups of mozzarella cheese on top. Now, I do know that for a poor man's meal that they usually didn't tend to have a lot of dairy products. So if you don't have any type of cheese, and it's going to be just fine. It's just gonna taste like a spaghetti, and traditional spaghetti doesn't have mozzarella cheese, so it's totally fine either way. But in our house, we absolutely love cheese, so I'm adding some cheese on top, and I cooked that on 400 degrees for about 25 minutes, and this is what it looked like after it was all done and cooked. And my family absolutely devoured this, and you can have this with some homemade bread or any type of bread that you prefer. Next, I'm going to be making this spaghetti soup, and this is not a traditional poor man's meal, but this goes quite a long ways. So, and it's really simple ingredients, and it doesn't really call for any dairy products. So, I'm considering this a poor man's meal. It's going to stretch our budget further, and it is absolutely delicious. You guys have to try this meal. I'm just going to add in my vegetables. I sliced up a whole onion and then 2 whole carrots and then 2 stalks of celery, and then I put that in with some any type of fat that you want to use. I just add this oil, so I'm just gonna use that oil that I had. And then I also put in some minced garlic. I have about a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic that I put in. I'm gonna let those vegetables cook until they're all nice and tender, and then I'm gonna take them out, and then I'm gonna put in my ground beef and chop that up. Make sure everything is nice and ground up and cook through. Once it's all cooked through, I'm actually just going to leave the grease in there. There's not a whole lot of grease from this beef just because it's from a local butcher as well, and it just doesn't produce a whole lot of grease, so it's fine. You know, we're not really big on that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the vegetables back into the soup. or into the soup pot, and then I'm going to go ahead and give that a really good stir, and then I'm going to add in my diced tomatoes. Now I just had this can of petite diced tomatoes, which I really am tending to like the petite ones versus just the regular ones. So I'm going to add in 1 can, which is a 15-ounce can. I'm also going to add in 1 jar of pasta sauce. You can add in whatever type that you want. This is just what I had in my pantry. I don't really shop on what's our favorite one is. It's just kind of what's on sale at the time and what's a good price. So I think I got that on sale. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then I did put in a whole jar of water from that can of ragu sauce and back into the soup pot mix. And then I'm going to add in some Italian seasoning, some salt, and some pepper. I went a little crazy on the Italian seasoning, as you can tell, but I definitely want this to be super flavorful. I always try to add in more seasonings when I'm making these budget meals or these poor man meals, just because they are very basic ingredients and I really want to add a lot of flavor to make things taste good. I don't want my kids and my husband to bite into something that's super bland and just not very appetizing at all. I'm going to let that simmer while I am cooking up my spaghetti noodles, and it calls for 2 to 4 ounces of spaghetti. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, and then when I put it in the soup pan, I'm just going to eyeball and see what looks good, because I don't want it to be spaghetti per se, but I want it to be more of like a soup mix. So I don't want a whole lot of noodles in it, but I do enjoy the noodles in it just to make the soup go a little bit further. Then I forgot to add in the salt earlier, so I'm going to add in about half a teaspoon of salt there, and then give that a really good stir. And now my noodles should be all cooked through, and I drained off all the water. So I'm going to add in half at a time and just kind of eyeball it and see where I want, or how much spaghetti noodles I want to add to it. I really enjoyed this meal just because you can add tons of veggies to this, and that way your kids are getting lots of veggies in and they're not really tasting all of the veggies. You could definitely add in some green bell peppers, any type of pepper, to give it a little bit extra flavor if that is in your budget. I love the carrots in here just because my kids didn't really even taste the carrots, but it's adding some vegetables to their diet. And this is what it looks like after it's all done. And you can also add in some more water if you think it's too spaghetti. I don't know how to say it, but this was really good and my kids enjoyed it. The last poor man meal that I'm going to be making is just the traditional poor man stew, but I'm going to be doing this in the Instant Pot. So I cut up some potatoes, some carrots, and some onions, and I'm going to add in this whole can of tomato paste, and then I'm going to add in a whole teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, and then a whole teaspoon of garlic powder. Definitely trying to make sure everything is nice and flavorful. And so I'm just going to add this to the bottom of my Instant Pot. And then I am going to pour in 2 cups of water so that I can get the tomato paste and all the seasonings combined really well so that nothing's stuck at the bottom of my Instant Pot. And then once I've given that a really good stir, I'm going to go ahead and add in my vegetables. I diced up half an onion, and then 3 to 4 small to medium sized potatoes, and then 2 regular sized carrots. I just diced all that up, and then here I am just putting it into the Instant Pot. And I am going to put enough water in there to make sure that those potatoes are going to be submerged so that they're going to cook properly. I am also going to add in some minced garlic. That way it's going to give it quite a bit of flavor. So I add in about a tablespoon of minced garlic. And then I'm going to kind of let that sit for just a minute because I'm going to cook up my ground beef onto my cast iron skillet. Y'all know I love, love, love cooking on my cast iron skillet. It just makes life easy. And so I'm just going to ground this up until it's nice and cooked through. I'm also going to drain off any excess grease because I really don't want grease in with this meal per se. Once it's all cooked through, I'm going to bring it back to my Instant Pot, and I'm just going to put it right on back in there. And then I'm going to add in another can of diced petite tomatoes. I just really enjoy these petite ones, and I they kind of got lost in my pantry, and I recently found all my petite tomatoes. I'm like, oh, that's a score. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my beef, like I said earlier, the tomatoes, and then I'm going to make sure that there's enough water that everything is nice and submerged, and then I'm going to seal it, and I'm going to let this cook on high pressure for 35 minutes exactly. And that was a beautiful, beautiful time because the potatoes were absolutely perfect. And a lot of times, what I like to do with my soups is add in bay leaves because bay leaves just, I don't know what it is, but it gives it a tremendous flavor with soups. So if you have them on hand, definitely use them. They are wonderful. And now the 35 minutes are up, and now I'm going to show you what everything looks like. This is so good, and it made, I want to say, close to like 15 servings. It made so much soup, so it definitely stretched my budget, stretched my dollar further, and it was absolutely delicious. And I love it. I loved it in the Instant Pot. Now, this recipe was supposed to be like a slow cooker recipe, but I turned it into an Instant Pot just because I kind of made dinner really, really late, and I didn't have time to put in the crock pot. My goodness. And so I did have some homemade bread that I had made that day, and that's what we paired this with. If you want to put in this soup any other type of vegetables that you want, like peas and green beans, that would be amazing too.
Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you found some inspiration for meals this week. So I'm so glad that you guys stayed to the end. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give me a like if you enjoy this kind of content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.